Hello and welcome to the Career Success Podcast. I'm Jason Connolly. If you're a regular listener, it's great to have you back, but if you're new, welcome to the show. In this series every week, we speak to the biggest names in business all across the globe. We talk about their career stories, the lessons learned, how they overcome challenges, and what success habits they practice. Practical advice to help you in your career. If you have a passion for business, then this is the podcast for you. In this episode, I'm delighted to be joined by Nir Bashan from Orlando in Florida. Nir works with Hollywood and music stars like Woody Harrelson and Rod Stewart. Nir discovered something that may shock you. These creative superstars aren't all different from you or I. It's just that they've mastered a method of repeatable and predictable creativity, a type of creativity that anyone can learn. And it turns out that same type of creativity can be used in business and careers everywhere. Nir has taught thousands of leaders and individuals all across the globe how to harness the power of creativity to improve profitability, increase sales, boost customer service, and ultimately create more meaning in their work. Working with clients such as AT&T, Microsoft, Ace Hardware, NFL Network, EA Sports, Suzuki, Activision, and JetBlue, Nir has spent the last 2 decades working on a formula to codify creativity for business. That formula is found in The Creative Mindset, a book which has been translated into 2 languages and released worldwide by McGraw Hill Book in August of 2020. Nir, thank you for joining me on this episode.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jason. It's going to be great.
It's great. So, talk to us. You've had a really interesting career. You've worked with big Hollywood music stars. Tell us how it all got started for you, and walk us through your career journey there.
Yeah, definitely. So, I've worked I've had a lot of different jobs, and I've had a lot of different companies that I've owned myself, and I've just found that every single thing that I do, no matter what it is, from working in Hollywood, doing furniture refinishing to, all these different types of businesses, the thing that makes people the most successful is their ability to stay creative, to have creative ideas and to be able to execute them on a regular basis. And I found that no matter what I did from creative field to non-creative field, the most important thing that people could ever do is become more creative, and that's kind of the life I've made for myself, Jason.
That's really interesting. And I guess kind of you having multiple kind of jobs and different careers. I was there. I had lots of jobs. How's that kind of has that been quite kind of pivotal in your success and getting you to where you are now?
Definitely. So I remember just, being, 9 years old in Los Angeles, going door to door washing cars and thinking, we can get much more business if we were to be a little bit more creative about our sales process, whether, what we said when people opened the door or how we approached the different jobs and so on and so forth. And even through washing cars, I learned that most people didn't want their cars washed. They wanted another service because, who's going to give their car keys to a 9 year old, right? In Los Angeles. So what they wanted was, some cleaning service or taking out the trash or some kind of useful thing that needed to get done. And in order to be successful, we had to get really creative about it. So we would knock and say, hey, we're a car washing business, but we're also really good at sweeping. Can we sweep up your, front porch or whatever? And people,
Upselling, I think they
oh,
call that in the
it's
sales
amazing.
industry there.
Yeah, it's amazing. And people would get, really excited about it and say,
Mm.
yeah, honestly, I do have some stuff. There's some boxes in the garage that need to get taken out, and can you rearrange this and, move that over here? And then all of a sudden we started to become very busy. And many, many years later, I'm not 9 anymore, I'm much, much older. And I still do the same exact thing, right? I still go through, it's pretty significant master services agreements and, you know, statements of work and all this stuff. And still, I've noticed that getting creative is what people want, no matter how much time is spent on a master services agreement or a statement of work. Your ability to be successful is really about reinvention. It's about being creative. It's about meeting the needs of the client or the customers right then and there. And so for me, that ability has always been the ability to be creative, to stay relevant, fresh, and exciting.
And talk to us about the because obviously I just can't help myself but asking there. Tell us about the work that you have done with these really well known individuals. What was it, and how did that how did you find out about this creativity, all of us possessing, and the skills being within each of us?
So definitely, I've had a hunch that we were all born creative, but never really was able to back it up until I wrote a book. Right, I wrote a book called The Creator Mindset, and in that book, I had to do a significant amount of research. It's the first book I've ever written, and I thought that I could just write down my opinions and it would, pass. Yeah, and it's like, I got an editor and people at McGraw Hill telling me absolutely not. You have to back up this fact and please find two attributes that contribute to this point of view and so on and so forth. So I was like, okay, wow, it looks like I've got to actually do some real work here. And so pretty much have defined that we're all born creative, right? As children, we have problem solving skills that come from a creativity mindset. And as we get older, we trade those creative problem solving skills for analytical ones. And so what has happened was I was sitting in a bunch of recording studios as a kid, 15, 16 years old in Los Angeles. I was in a punk band. We toured and played all the local clubs and stuff like that. And, that led to being in a recording studio. And I sat there and I watched, every famous people, not so famous people, have a repeatable and routinely executable process for creativity. It wasn't just about, lightning striking and, oh, I feel inspired today and I'm going to go write a song. No, these people that I sat and watched in a recording studio had a method. And I said, you know what? This is amazing because I bet that method would work, for anything. And so that I started to learn that some people manage to keep creativity from childhood into adulthood and were able to use it in creative field.
Mm.
And I felt that was amazing.
Can you walk us through the process? Because maybe people have got this within themselves and they don't necessarily realize that they have at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. So out of working in recording studios and then later in Hollywood and then later owning, a furniture refinishing company, which was not creative. And then, running an advertising agency, which is surprisingly not creative. And doing all of these things, I learned that there is a recipe for creativity, and I wrote it down. It took me 6 years to write the book, The Creator Mindset. 6 years, because I was working. I wasn't sitting around and meditating and coming up with things that would, help me align my chakras or whatever. Which is fine if that's what you do. But what I was doing is working, like you and all your listeners. I was busy. I had a job. I had a payroll to make. I had insurance premiums to make and
Mm, mm.
all of the stuff. So it's a real world book, and I found that there's three things that can help you become creative no matter what you do, and it's something your listeners can do today. Creativity is a practice, not something that you wait for, right? So how do you practice creativity? You look at whatever you're doing, your job or your career, if you're a lawyer or finance or whatever it is that you do. You look at your concept, your idea, and your execution. The concept is the largest possible way to look at your product or service. The idea is the middle ground, and the execution is the exact product that you make, the SKU, the medium meat lovers pizza with,
Mm.
double crust cheese and stuff like that. And what you do is you grab a pen and a paper, because I always thought that when I write stuff down, I become more creative. And then again, when I wrote the book, I had to, find three or four scientists that agreed with me and find the literature and science that said, yep, that's absolutely true. And so it's not about writing it on your phone or typing it in. It's about grabbing a piece of paper and a pen, and you write down the concept, the idea, and the execution of what it is that you do. And when you write those three things down, you circle them and you start to expand upon what each different level allowed you to do. So let's say you're a pizza company, and I've done this with a very popular pizza brand here in the US. I asked them to write down their idea, their idea, and their execution. And because creativity is innate, it's who we are as human beings.
Mm,
Every answer is going to be different, right? So it's not going to be
sure.
my interpretation of what your creativity is, Jason, or your listeners. It's going to be whatever whatever you are actually doing. So, it takes some time to get used to thinking this way, but when you're able to change your mindset, you're able to be creative, at the drop of a hat. So everybody wrote down their execution, which was the double crust meat lovers cheesy pizza. I said, okay, guys, what's the idea? And a lot of people in the room were like, "Near it's pizza. We're a pizza place." I'm like, okay, what do you guys really want to do? If you could fucking wave a magic wand, what would you guys do? They're like, well, we need to increase sales, which is what everybody said, Jason. Like, great. Okay, how do you guys want to do that? Well, we want new products. We just want new products. So I said, okay, let's come up with the idea of that middle, medium
Mm,
crust pizza. What's the idea? And they said, well, the idea is pizza here. Pizza for God's sakes. That's what the idea is. I said, okay, guys, let's start to, let everybody relax, take a couple of deep breaths. Let's really think here. Let's make creativity happen. And they said, okay. I said, well, why are you guys in the pizza business? I'm sure all you guys can be making way more money doing something else. And a couple laughs and stuff like that. And they're like, well, we're really passionate. Our founder came over in 1920, with a recipe and blah blah blah. And it's the best sauce. I said, okay, cool, we're getting somewhere. And they started to get excited, right? So somebody wrote down best sauce and all of this stuff, and come to find out that their idea is really around comfort food, because everything that the chain started out to do was to make people more comfortable. Comfort food is, Italian, it's very familiar, it's warm, it, smells good and very comfortable. So I said, okay, guys, great, we got comfort food. And I could tell the mood in the room was getting just so much better when, people felt free to take a leap on different ideas and not have to be, pigeonholed into an idea, or, we spent no time looking at the P&L sheets, or what region was doing better based on 0.02% efficiencies and stuff like that. We just had fun, and we started to talk about a concept of the biggest idea of that pizza can possibly that this particular pizza place could possibly live in. And somebody came up with sustenance, because there's people in America who don't get a pizza at 5 o'clock every day, they'd starve, right? Because this is the brand that they associate with safety and comfort, and they depend on these guys for social interaction and a pizza delivery and food and all this stuff. So sustenance is your concept, your idea is comfort food, and your execution is the double crust, stuffed meat lovers, pizza with the cheesy crust or whatever it was. So now, Jason, it's easy to come up with new products, right? All we have to do is go up to our idea. What other things can we think of that have to do with comfort food? And you should have seen the room. I mean, this was, I don't know, several weeks of ideation, but it was doing. Nobody sat there and it wasn't artsy fartsy. Nobody played, the seven tones of Solomon and chanted yum yum yum. It wasn't that kind of thing. It was, and if you're into that, that's great. Then keep doing it. But it was doing, right. Everybody was actually doing stuff, and they came up with a bunch of really great stuff. One of which was calzone, and they put those out, and they did really well, really really well. And boom, they had more sales because that's what they wanted, and they had a new product that fit perfectly in line with their product or service. So the concept, the idea, and the execution. Doesn't matter what you do, sit down and write those things out. And you could do it every day, every couple hours if you want. If you
mm.
need fresh ideas and fresh inspiration, you don't go look externally, you look internally.
That's really, really interesting. And I know that you've kind of put it there on a level about a pizza company, but you go out there to thousands of leaders all across the globe, really, inspiring people about kind of creativity. And in your book, you say creativity isn't a nice to have leadership trait. It's the key to success in every workplace, in all industries. That's such a big statement in itself.
I think it is absolutely true. I've seen a recent study that shows, automation is going to replace something like, 30% of the entry level jobs that are there today.
I've
And
read that. Do you agree?
I think so. I mean, here's
Mm.
the thing with this stuff, right? There's a whole subset of people that call themselves futurists, which, is just a little bit laughable, right? Because, like, predicting the future has been one of the things that mankind has wanted to do, since the dawn of humanity, right? The whole Nostradamus and how can I make predictions about things? And the truth is, there's zero ways to make predictions about anything. Zero. If people had the ability to really be a futurist, right? Quote unquote, then they'd be multi-bazillionaires, and we'd all be humbled by their amazing ability to predict things. I think there's indicators that maybe will point one way or the other, but look at all these futurists and people who thought they were so smart about what would happen. Look at them, pre-March 2020. Did anybody
Mm.
predict this? I mean, so I call bullshit adjacent on the whole thing. I just, it's like, really. But do I think that that would really happen? I don't know. It's hard to say. It's hard to really predict, right? It's hard to predict the future. But if that is indeed true, then the one thing I think that we can really prepare ourselves with is the ability to come up with a lot of ideas to make ourselves relevant. In every market, no matter a market that goes down, no matter if the market goes up, there are opportunities there to use creativity to do something different than what everyone else is doing. And if there's a race towards automation, maybe you set up your company the old fashioned way and the marketing and the branding material follows the handcrafted route. I don't know, it's hard to say, but creativity gives you option to adapt to whatever the marketplace is doing. And for that, I think, yes, absolutely. I agree with the statement that I put in.
And is there kind of when you go into these big companies, is there kind of like a usual kind of set of circumstances that you're presented with, or a certain maybe kind of common thread with people's ways of thinking and perceptions that you kind of have learned over the years that this is something that people have got ingrained in them, or is it quite individual every single kind of set of company or circumstance that you kind of go into, or is there similar threads?
So yeah, there's a set of, I would say, regular sort of rejection. Maybe, hey Nir, you're not going to teach us how to play trumpet, are you? We're not artsy fartsy. How will this creative stuff really impact my bottom line? I need to make more money. We need to become more profitable. Our revenue is not translating into profits as well as it should. It's stuff like that. What will create, how will creativity help, and that sort of thing. Usually when I come on, it's after the big five consultancy has been there and managed to extract 0.0001% from some end of the business, and hey, look how amazing we are. We've extracted 0.001% and up our revenue by this amount. But yet I'm coming in there because that hasn't made a profound, lasting difference. So the difference
Mm.
between analytics and creativity is that analytics, any change you make in analytics will work for a little while, but it will level off at some point. Because if you're not injecting creativity into the constant cycle of your business, then no matter what you choose to do analytically, it'll work for a little while, but then it will stagnate. It's a guarantee. I've seen it happen across every single sector I've ever worked in, from manufacturing to medicine. I've seen the same real estate. I've seen the same thing happen. When we look at analytics alone, we are not executing on the power of our mind. Our brain is literally divided into two hemispheres. One is analytic, one is creative. And yeah, there's a lot of
Mm.
crossover, but if we're not able to fuse them and think with our whole mind, we're always going to get stuck.
Yeah, really interesting. And what kind of drove you on to write the book as such? Because it's such an achievement to write a book in any senses. But what kind of talk us through that, because it's such an achievement.
So, I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, and I've
Mm.
always looked for opportunities. And the book is an opportunity in a market filled with why. So I said about 8 years ago, I started to look for books on creativity, and every single book in the market, Jason, is about why. Why should I be more creative? And I'd read these books and get really excited, but nobody would teach me how. And I could care less about the why, to be honest. The how is where it's really at. That's where the rubber meets the road. Show me how to do something, not why I should do something, right? Give me the tools, equip me with knowledge so that I can then become more creative. And so I wrote the first book on the market that is the how of creativity. It's done really well. It made a prestigious top 40 business books of last year. Um,
Wow, what an
Out of
achievement.
millions of books, and yeah, it's really great. And I get emails from readers and people that have enjoyed the book. Some have not enjoyed the book, but for the most part, people are like, "Great, finally!" I was able to earmark this page and put a post-it in there, and I turn to it when I need help. And that's the kind of book it is. If you're looking for something academic or maybe philosophical or something that would make you feel better about yourself, don't buy my book.
It
If
sounds like it's a very straight talking book for the creative
Yeah, if
sector.
you like what how this conversation is going, that is exactly what this book is. It's
But I think
literally
that's
a
nice.
bunch
I
of
think
tools.
rather than it being fluffy and it sounds like the point is there and it's going to kind of hit you throughout the book. And yeah, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a beautiful thing to have in any book. And there's strong lessons to take from it.
Definitely, it's a workbook. That's the kind of thing that I get
Mm.
a lot, where people say, "Oh man, this is it's like a manual, like a workbook." And so that's what inspired me to
Was
write
that
it.
what
I
you
found the
wanted it
whole.
to become? Was the feedback that you're getting now about it being a manual? Was that what you intended it to be, or has it kind of taken on its own life form as once it was published?
It's 100% what it was intended to be.
Right.
And
Okay.
I'm so glad that every decision that we've made throughout the process has led us to this point where, people can read it and go, oh, thank goodness, I finally have something to use that will teach me how to do what you recommend.
Really interesting. And what advice would you give to people kind of starting out in life? Because a lot of people listen to this podcast who have got an interest in business, they've got maybe an interest in their career. So maybe this could be more advice from you to people about their career and maybe business interests as well. But it's a tricky time for people at the moment, and I do think that yes, there's still a lot of opportunity around. But I know that it feels different to when I was growing up, and I'm 33. What advice would you give to people kind of, trying to find their way in the world?
Yeah, definitely, Jason. My advice would be
Mm,
to become as creative as humanly possible, no matter what it is that you do. I did a
mm.
keynote or a workshop for an HR group, and I got a lot of people saying, Near, I'm waiting for Sally to, retire so that I can have Sally's job. What advice can you give me? And I said, why are you waiting for Sally to retire so you can have Sally's job? Right? That's you
Mm.
need to act on different creative ideas so that you can get where you want to go. Sometimes today that means, leaving the company. Sometimes today that means just kind of circumventing that route by doing something else. That sometimes that means redefining your role or your title or your responsibilities. And I think that when we think creatively, nothing's off the table. And envisioning a world as it can be, not as it is an incredibly powerful creative tool. My advice to your listeners would be to take a minute every day, 1 minute every day,
That's
and
not
write.
long. That's only a minute.
It's just a minute, just just a minute, and write down what the world could look like if you were able to change one thing about your day. And it's a tool that's in the book, and it's something that's incredibly profound. So write that down, and then after a week, look at your list of what you've written down. It doesn't have to be, it could be 2 words, it could be a sentence. You look down at what you've written, and you'll see there a pattern of what it is maybe that you should be focusing on and how to get there.
And I think that's really good advice. I think a lot of people will take a lot from that. What's kind of next for you then in your career, and what's the rest of this? What's all your big plans for the rest of this year, 2021, the year of positivity?
That's right. Yeah, that's what it's all about. I got a lot of workshops going on that I'm doing, different companies, some consulting, some keynote speaking at different events later this year. Probably going to gear up to do a follow up to the Creator Mindset, another book, and that's about it. Just really enjoying West Ham, my favorite team. Come on, you Irons, being in fourth place in the league, which is at the time of this recording, which I hope stays for the next 12 games so we can make Europe. And that's the most exciting thing going on right now.
Well, listen, thank you so much for sharing your experiences, the book, what you've done with your career, and the message to take from the talk with you is creativity, and put that to use. And if you apply yourself in that way, then great things can happen. But thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us, Nir.
Thanks for having me, Jason.
If people want to find out more about you or connect with you, where can they go to?
So I'm the easiest person to find in the world, right? There's three Nir Bashans in existence. There's one kid that keeps uploading Call of Duty clips, and that's not me. There's a closet designer in Israel, and that's not me. It's Nir, NIRBASHAN.com. I have a community on there where people join. It's free. No Viagra ads, no weird stuff. It's just a forum where you can ask questions back and forth. We have CEOs on there. We have students on there. And it's all
It's a
about
place of
creativity.
collaboration.
That's right. It's all about creativity. And
Oh,
I'd love to see you and your listeners on there.
fantastic. Thank you so much. That was Nir Bashan from Orlando in Florida. I'm Jason Connolly. This is the Career Success Podcast. Until next time, goodbye.